I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone for now. And welcome to WOW. I think today is number 19. I could be wrong. It could be 18, but I think it's 19. And I'm so happy to see each and every one of you. Thank you for coming, and really thank you for taking your health and your life so seriously and making yourself a priority. Because one of these days soon, there is going to be so much for all of us to do to rebuild this world, and many hands make light work. So our goal here, well, my goal, I should speak for myself, is really truly to help each and every one of you create the healthiest body possible and maintain it after we have our, secret sauce. So that's the goal with WOW, is just to create healthy habits. And last week, we talked about something really important. Oh, it was a spiritual talk. And we had Dr. Janet, and she's talked to us about being mindful and being present and watching our self-talk. And so we had a little homework assignment to create, whoops, I got to put it in front of me, to create a vessel so that we can charge our water with affirmations. And she was talking about the focus or the importance of I am statements. And so one of the homeworks from last week was to write a list for yourself so that you can empower yourself of who you are and who you want to be. So I wrote my list of I am love, I am happy, I am smart, I am clever, I am secure, I am beautiful, I am strong. Okay, so I wrote this all up. But the funniest thing was when I was reading it later, I was writing I am compassionate, but my little pink Post-it, I ran out of space. So I didn't even realize it until it was already stuck to my glass, but it says I am compass. So what that reminds me of, and the reason it's staying there, is because it reminds me that I make mistakes. And that is okay, because based on what Jürgen was talking about yesterday, I've read John Maxwell's book called Failing Forward. And I believe that it's not how many times you fall, it's about how many times you get back up and keep moving forward. Okay. It's absolutely impossible to not make mistakes. So this is my reminder that I'm going to make mistakes. It's okay. And it's part of just my character. Okay. So I wanted to share that with you. So who here is new, and who here has something that they can share about doing their homework assignment? Go ahead and raise your hand. Jorgen, go for it.
I have made my own stickers on a magnet with positive words, and I need to develop its far. I have a lot of these cards with, I only think, lovely thought, but I need it bigger than this. It's I can put it everywhere. And then I have a list also I will use when I meditate. Oh, it's difficult to see, but similar to what you talk about, Tracy, a lot of positive vibes. So, and it's so good to be here among all you beautiful people. So we remind each other all the time to think positive and vibrate higher and higher. And so, thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Jorgen. You're always bringing such a nice, positive energy to the group. Your vibes are high. It's awesome. So thank you so much. Linda, you're muted, my dear.
Yeah. So first I wanted to say I am compass is not a mistake. You are a compass for all of us. You are leading us in a direction that we need to be aware of. So that is true. You are a compass. I have had affirmations written for 25 years or more, and I've memorized them because I did them in alphabetical order.
Oh, smart.
So there's multiple A's and multiple B's and multiple, and I had written in Key Telegram yesterday that I recited those multiple times before I went to sleep. And I have my mug with my abundant love sticker. Uh, and I also am including the affirmations in the morning. But when I woke up, I just had the most wonderful, loving feeling surrounding me that everything was a dance. Everything I did, all of the preparation, early morning preparations that we all go through, became a musical dance to me. And I hadn't felt that way before. So I thought it had to be the mug that I have my affirmation on, and then the reciting of the affirmations before bedtime. And of course, early morning is always good. And I got everything to make the red sauce. I just have not made it. And it's on my list to do in the next few days.
Cool. There you go, Gloria. Awesome. And I love how you said that, because I'm reading the book, and I'm sure a lot of you have already read The Power of Now. And like while I'm in the shower, I'm like just kind of feeling, and it's like, but I love that visual of having your morning routine, or the things that you do in a routine fashion, have them be a dance. And it goes along with Key, with the recipe for what we're trying to create, or what we are creating. I don't like the word try. I love the definition of try as a feeble attempt. And I love, of course, Master Yoda, do or do not, there is no try. So thank you for that, Linda. I'm going to really, really focus on that dance. Donna, it's so good to hear from you. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Hi, everybody. My name is Donna. This is my first meeting with Quantum Healing Systems. I signed up in August for a unit, but I haven't received it. But I follow your telegrams and emails and things like that I get, the daily reports. And I just saw this and it jumped out at me with Kelly talking about fasting, because I've done a lot of fasting in the past, and I'm just interested in about it. I love that you're doing the I am statements. I'm an I am student, and I do I am statements all the time, and they work really well for me. So I actually saw the thing last week, but I didn't do it with the water, but it's a good idea. And anyway, so
Welcome.
I'm happy to be here. Yeah.
We're so happy to see your smiling face, and so honored to have you here as a new member. And just to try to say, so it's like you joined in August. You joined your membership in August?
Correct.
Okay, awesome. Well, we're happy to have you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Kira, and then we'll finish up and move on over to Kelly.
Two things. I left early last week, so I didn't hear the homework to write things down. And I grabbed a cup for my tea today, and it already says on there that gratitude leads to joy, which fills the heart with love and peace. So I just picked that up today, randomly grabbed it out of my cabinet. And I thought that was kind of cool. Then with the IMs, there is an exercise that I've done for years and years that I find really works. Rather than listing a whole bunch every day, I do one I am statement for 15 times for 15 days, and it resets things, and you can do as many as you want. And I find that as I do it over the days, the verbiage changes a little bit. And so I think it's one way, and then tomorrow, or even after, I'm into line 10, and then it changes just a little bit, because as I shift, the words shift, and the words matter. And another thing that I've done, I'll share this little exercise, that when I'm in the process of creating my I am, I will go and, because our goal is to get all of our parts integrated back into who we are. So we're not separate into a bunch of different parts, that we are all of us. I will sometimes go and I'll talk to each of the parts and have them contribute to the sentence, so everybody's in alignment, and rewrite that sentence with all the contributions from each one of my parts. And then when I do that, those IMs are pretty powerful.
I bet. That's beautiful, Kira. How cool. Maybe I'll have to have you come teach a class on that for WOW.
I'm happy to.
Awesome. And just because sometimes I forget to say this at the end of our WOW calls, we are always looking for members who have something they want to contribute. Okay. Everyone has a gift. Everyone has these passionate purposes. And if your heart is calling you to share, I'm booking for February right now, and I'm always interested so we can have a conversation. Please feel free to email me at tracy@qtwe.net if your heart is calling you to lead a discussion. Okay. It's actually more of an interview than a discussion, but either way, we love hearing from you. Okay. Like I've said before, every one of us, admin and members, are part of this beautiful jigsaw puzzle. And we need every one of your pieces to complete this puzzle. Okay. So we love hearing your gifts and everything that you can contribute. Okay. So now let's talk with Kelly. So as most of you know, I'm a health coach and a fitness trainer, and I've been in the nutrition space for about 15 years. And I've had some experience with fasting. I think the longest I did was 3.5 days. And because of my goals, I don't do a ton of fasting anymore. However, fasting has so many health benefits. I do intermittent fasting like every single day, which Kelly will talk about and why it's good for you. So most of you know that Kelly is a nurse, and she has a lot of experience with fasting because she had a health crisis when she was quite young. And so she was able to get help with that by going to a special doctor. And so today we're going to hear about her health journey and how she was able to incorporate fasting to help her body heal. And so despite trying all these different things to get rid of her pain, nothing seemed to work. And then everything was better with her fasting and using this holistic remedy. And I also asked her to talk a little bit about structured water, because we have talked about structured water a little bit here in the group as well as in Telegram. And quite frankly, I don't understand it completely. So I wanted her to just try to chime in and talk about it and all of that. So also, I want to introduce Dr. Gloria for anyone who's new. Dr. Gloria has been a naturopath and homeopath for 41 years. She has an extensive background in writing and teaching, and she is just a wonderful asset to WOW. And we also have a cooking show for those who haven't seen it, because her focus is on anti-inflammatory cooking. So at the end of this show, she's going to talk about her recipe for the week, which was delicious. Some I absolutely love and some are just okay, but this one was a winner. Big, big, big winner. So I'll let her take over after Kelly. So hey, Kelly, thanks so much for coming and sharing your story on WOW today.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm so excited and so honored to be here. So, I've been in the healthcare field itself for 30 some years. I started back when I was in high school. And my first job out of high school was working in a physician's office. And so I kind of worked up from the front desk and walking people to their, exam rooms, to office manager. And, and then I decided to go back to school to be a nurse after a number of years. And so I was a clinical nurse for 15 years, and I worked in critical care, adult med surg, telemetry, cardiac, kidney. I mean, you name it, I kind of saw it all, did it all. So I have a very broad range of knowledge within the healthcare field, and both an administrative construct as well as the clinical. And when I was about 30 years old, I had a severe health crisis. I was just racked with inflammation. I didn't know what it was from. I didn't know how it started. I didn't know how to stop it. I just knew all my joints ached. I had constant diarrhea or constipation. I had terrible skin, hair, nails. I was bloated. My skin was discolored. I was literally blowing apart at the seams.
And you were 30?
Sorry?
You were only 30, right?
I was only 30 years old.
You barely look 30 now, so that's
Thank you. It's the fasting. I will tell you, when I was 25, I looked like I was 50. I'm not kidding you. I won't even show pictures because I'm so embarrassed about it. And it wasn't just the weight. It was literally like what I just described. I looked and felt awful. I looked like I was about to die. And I felt like I was about to die. I was in so much pain. I couldn't sleep. I was going to the chiropractor and the acupuncturist 3 times a week, paying like $300 a pop cash out of pocket each session for each at the time, because my insurance wouldn't cover it. I mean, I was literally just working to pay for treatments and medications and creams and sprays and whatever. My skin was so bad that like every like fold of the skin was so dry and cracked that around my lips and my eyes, they would bleed. As I would blink, my eyes would bleed. As I would talk, they would crack open, and I couldn't eat anything that was acidic because it would burn so bad. When I would take a shower, the water on my skin burned like acid.
And how
I
long
did
did that last? How long were you experiencing those symptoms?
a few years. And
Wow.
it just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And it came to a head at one point when I went on vacation with my sister to Florida. Now, obviously, I'm very fair, and I've had sun poisoning a number of times in my life. So I was always like, oh, I have to put the sunblock on, you know? And I remember we were walking around Disney World, and I was literally just sitting there in the magical kingdom crying hysterically because I was in so much pain. My skin I felt like somebody had just dropped me into a vat of hydrochloric acid. I didn't know what to do. And I called my dermatologist, who had been prescribing me, I don't know, like increasingly terrible things to take to try to get it under control. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. She's like, well, just walk around with an umbrella. You can't put the sunblock on. Even just taking a shower, like I said, it was just murder. I came back and I went to work one day, and my skin was just so red and inflamed and swollen. They were afraid I was going to go into anaphylactic shock. They didn't know what was wrong with me. And so the doctors wanted to put me on oral corticosteroids because that was the point I was at. And being a nurse, I knew how bad that was for you, for every body system. I'm like, I'm only 30 years old. I can't go down that route. It's gonna kill me. So after thousands and thousands of dollars, years of agony, I said, you know what? I need to stop the madness. It was like that Susan Powder commercial, you know, with weight loss. Stop the insanity. I was like, something's got to change. This, you know, Rockefeller medicine is not helping me. I'm only getting worse by day, you know? And I was like, I was at the point I was suicidal because I was in so much pain. You know, I didn't know what to do. So I finally contacted this naturopathic doctor. And, you know, because I was so immersed in the healthcare field, I had drunk the Kool-Aid. You know, I didn't know there was another way. They were always like, oh, that's quack medicine, you know, it's snake oil, you know. And I was like, I don't care. If it helps me, I'm going to try it. And so that one visit changed my entire life.
So what doctor was it? It was a homeopath?
A naturopathic doctor.
Okay.
She had been trained in Canada. And I took one step into her office, and she said, stop right there. She's like, I don't know what you're eating, but something you're eating is inflaming you at this. Because I had already sent her like a bunch of my lab test results and things that I was taking. Like I had a garbage bag, a big black garbage bag of the supplements I was taking and the medications that I was on that she told me to bring, that I was like dragging behind me. And she's like, stop all of that right now. So I was overloaded with toxicity from the foods that I was eating, the medications that I was taking, the air I was breathing, the water I was drinking, everything. And so she made me do a full detox, which was basically a green juice detox at the time. And I'm telling you, 2 weeks into that, I had brand new baby skin. I had no more pain. And I had lost probably 30 pounds just in like whooshing all this garbage out of me. And I was like, I don't even care that I had been hungry for the first three or 4 days. I feel amazing. And that just propelled me to learn more about like, what the hell are we going through in our daily lives? Like, what are we eating? How are we living? And I had this paradigm shift completely away from traditional healthcare and medicine, and a turn towards all of these homeopathic and alternative and complementary, you know, ideas. And since I had done a juice fast, basically, I started fasting. And I had done, the longest fast I've ever done was a 30-day water only fast.
Wow.
And
Let me just make a disclaimer really quick, okay? To all of you listening, please note that she did this under doctor medical supervision. I am not going to recommend anybody doing a lengthy fast without being medically supervised. Okay, so I just want to
I
stop
was
with that.
just about to say that the reason that I did this, and I don't recommend anybody does extended fasting unless you have a very specific reason for doing it. And my reason was that I personally had uterine fibroids and ovarian cysts, and I did not want to take hormones or have surgery to correct that. So I worked with my gynecologist and my primary medical doctor, and I was monitored. I did it the safe way. And that was where, I learned a lot of different hacks to make things like that easier and more comfortable. And I really learned a lot about the fact that, well, hunger itself is really hormone driven. What we perceive in our stomach as like that growling syndrome and that pang in your stomach, that's not true hunger. You actually feel true hunger in the back of your throat. And it's so hard to explain to somebody who's never experienced it. And the only way I can liken it is to what like a vampire would have felt, when they wake up and they're like ravenously hungry. You would think that they would feel it in their throat, like they're so thirsty. That's actually what true hunger feels like. And I don't know why you get the sensation at the back of your throat, but all of the literature kind of says that. And it's so bizarre because you would think it would be in your stomach. But your stomach is really just the place that they send the signals to from your brain, right? And that's controlled by the hormone ghrelin. You can control the release of the ghrelin by a couple of different hacks. And we'll talk about that in a couple of minutes. But once you understand your different hormones and how they work and what they do, you can actually hack those to make your body work for you instead of against you. And it's so important. And I wouldn't have put those things together if I wasn't a nurse. And it's so hard when you're just a layperson and you're trying to gather information and trying to do something healthy for yourself. And you hear somebody on YouTube or, somebody else, some sort of talking head say, oh, do this. But they don't really understand the science behind it themselves. And so they're actually advising you to do something that's harmful. And so there's so much misinformation and misunderstanding out there that people get frustrated. They think, oh my God, I tried to do fasting and I wanted to rip my face off. I was so hungry. Well, they didn't prepare their body the right way. I didn't just jump into a 30-day water fast out of the clear blue. That's something I worked up to over the course of 10 years, So, I really am a huge proponent of intermittent fasting, whether it's on a schedule of like fasting for 16 hours and having an 8-hour eating window, or even if you want to be a little stricter, 1 meal a day or a 2-hour feeding window. I don't really expect people or want people to go more than, say, 24 hours without eating unless they're doing it for the specific purpose of boosting their immune system. Because after 72 hours of a fast, of a pure water fast, you have completely revitalized your entire immune system. You've replaced broken DNA. You've repaired cells that are dead or dying or not functioning the correct way and gotten rid of them. And your red blood cells and white blood cells have been regenerated.
And you've increased your human growth hormone.
Exactly.
You have aided your body with autophagy and apoptosis, which is basically what she said, but one of them is getting rid of the bad cells and one of them is repairing and recycling and repair, like, so that the like free radical cells become complete and whole and healthy. But let's break this down a little bit. Okay. So you started way over here, but I want to bring it back here and then incrementally go. Okay. So let's first talk about intermittent fasting. So I feel like about 14 hours is, like a starting point.
Oh, yeah.
That you would want to fast for about 14, 15, 16 hours. What do you feel about that? And then what are your hacks to improve that?
Okay, so let's define what fasting is. People think, oh, I'm not going to starve myself. That's starvation. It's not starvation. Starving people would never choose to be in that situation. Let's put that way. When you're choosing to fast, the only thing you're really doing is voluntarily extending the amount of time between your meals. That's really the definition of fasting. You fast every night after you finish your last meal, before when you go to bed at night until you eat the next day, you're fasting. We just don't think about it that way because we think of it, oh, I'm going to bed, right? But that's where the word breakfast came from, breaking of the fast. So it doesn't matter if you're breaking your fast at 7 a.m., 11 a.m., 5 p.m. It doesn't matter. It's still technically breakfast because that's when you're breaking your fast, but maybe you're not eating a breakfast food at that time. So maybe you consider it like, oh, it's lunchtime, so I'm eating lunch, even though, whatever, it's your first meal of the day. So it's like more of a psychological thing. But what's nice about fasting is that when you get past 12 hours, you've, at that point, for most people, utilized all of the stored sugar in your system, in your bloodstream. At that point, your body has to make a decision. Either it sends signals to you like, I'm hungry, eat, for you to take food in the form of sugars, fats, carbohydrates, proteins, oils, and that kind of thing, right? And then that liberates sugar from what you've just ingested. Or it has to go to the stored sugar in your cells in the form of glycogen. And so that uses the process of glycolysis and gluconeogenesis to start making sugar and fats from those stored things. Well, at the end of that 12 hours, you've pretty much exhausted all of that stored energy. And now you have to jump into breaking down the fat. And that's the process of gluconeogenesis and lipolysis and stuff. And so you get into like some science, but what it really means is just breaking down your fat. So it's the difference between going to the refrigerator and grabbing, an apple that you just have sitting in the refrigerator and eating that versus, okay, I've eaten all the food in the refrigerator. I'm still hungry. I need fuel. So what's left? Now I got to go into the freezer, but now I have to defrost the steak that's in there before I can eat it. So breaking down their fat is like the same thing as going to the freezer and having to defrost the foods. And you have at any given time, even Tracy, who's very thin and fit and healthy, like 40,000 excess, calories on your body. That's why we can survive for so long, without food. And honestly, you can survive longer than 3 days without water, but that's a whole nother story. But the reason you can survive longer than 3 days is what you end up doing is you break down your fat, which releases the water that's stored in the fat, and you metabolize those fluids. But that's another story. So when you're getting into the fasting, that 14 hours is like your sweet spot, the 14 to 16 hour range. So you've gotten into fat burning by that point, and you've already even done some breaking down of old cells. So you get like kind of the best of both worlds, but you haven't been fasting long enough to really have significant boosts in your growth hormone or in stimulating the turnover of your immune system. So if you wanted to do those things in excess, you would have to fast a little bit longer, like in excess of a full day. And
So
then
let's start with that. Okay, so really, truly, the best thing to do is eat your dinner 3 hours before bedtime. So if you eat your dinner at 6 and go to bed at 9, that's adequate. So your fasting window would start at 6. So if you normally wake up at say 7 and eat breakfast, the simplest way to do it is just push it out an hour or 2 or 3 and see how your body feels. And by hydrating properly, taking some electrolytes, that is a way to extend the fast. So I go to bed I kind of do that. I eat between 6 and 7. I go to bed around 9 or so. And then I wake up, I have a cup of coffee, some electrolytes, go to the gym. So the earliest I ever eat breakfast is 10. So right there, that is about 15, 16 hours that I do without even thinking about it. So it's not hard to do that, but that will actually help you just begin the process. And then you can kind of extend. So go ahead, Kelly. So if Like, so if it goes from, say they fasted, like say 16 hours, then what's the next step?
Well, honestly, I don't even recommend somebody jumping right into intermittent fasting, because if you're still stuck in the standard American diet where you're primarily consuming carbohydrates, trying to get to that 16-hour mark for those people is like literally trying to like go against the full grain, because your body wants that sugar. So you're going to suffer with a lot of those hunger pains. So whenever like people have ever asked me like, well, how do you do it? Before I start any fast, whether it's an intermittent fasting regimen or an extended fast of some sort, I always go through a period of at least a week where I've completely cut out my carbs or extremely lowered the carbohydrate content of my diet. Because that natural, but I don't, during that time period, I don't limit my calorie intake. I don't limit my time frame for eating. If I'm hungry, I eat, but I make sure that it's a higher fat content and a moderate protein and a low carbohydrate, because that forces your body into a state of ketosis already. And what that does is when you're submitting or when you're making ketone bodies and you're running off of fat already, it naturally decreases your hunger. Remember, I was talking about ghrelin before? It decreases the ghrelin and it increases the production of CCK, which is cholecystokinin. What cholecystokinin does is the hormone, that's your satiety hormone. And so when you secrete CCK, it slows the motility of the gastric tract so that you can digest your food more purposely, better for assimilation. But it also sends a signal to your brain that you're full.
So how does that compare to leptin?
It's similar to leptin, but it's the actual hormone. Leptin is like a form of cholecystokinin, but cholecystokinin is the actual hormone that is the satiety hormone. They're very similar. And what I also do is, in addition to making sure that I'm eating high fat, low carb, and I eat a moderate protein, I also make sure I get enough fiber. Like when I eat vegetables, they're fibrous vegetables like artichokes and asparagus and broccoli and things like that. Things that are going to sit in your gut for a while, because what happens is they ferment and they make propionate and butyrate. And propionate and butyrate actually cause you to secrete a hormone called PYY and glucagon-like peptide 1 or GLP-1. And those both also help to increase your satiety level and help to increase the burning of fats in your system. So it's like a snowballing effect. You're constantly reinforcing this satiety hormone to be released. Now, this is what I want people to understand. If you're consuming something with a caloric content, it doesn't matter if it's a carb, a fat, or a protein, okay? If you're consuming something with a caloric content, you are secreting insulin. If you're secreting insulin, you are storing fat, period. It doesn't matter. Now, like I said, different protein macronutrients will stimulate your insulin secretion to a different level. Fats having the least amount of effect, proteins the next, or the next least, carbohydrates obviously having the greatest effect, which is why you want to, when you're a diabetic, especially, you want to lower your carbohydrates, because you're constantly doing this with your insulin and all like that. Whereas if you're eating proteins, you might spike a little bit, and with fats, you might just have a little bump. It's much easier. And if you're taking in like a medium chain fatty acid, like coconut oil or MCT oil, your body will preferentially burn that first, and then we'll go to your skeletal fat. But when you're controlling these hormones in this way, and you're reinforcing, the higher fat content and the burning of your own fat, it naturally suppresses your hunger. So if you automatically drop your carbohydrates and you get into this ketotic state, then when you go to add the intermittent fasting, it's a breeze. You almost don't even notice it. And there are times I've had to set an alarm on my phone to remind me to eat, because I don't get the hunger signals.
So let's just say though, let's have a clarifier on that. You don't have to do a ketogenic diet in order to
No,
do
you don't.
intermittent fasting. It just
No.
makes it easier because it decreases your hunger. So it
Yes.
gets you off the blood sugar roller coaster that most people are on, even if you're eating healthy carbs. Even an apple spikes your sugar, so it makes insulin happen in your body. So that's
Mhm.
all she's saying. So anybody can fast. This lady at my gym, she does the intermittent fasting where she was eating one meal a day, which we'll get to talking about that in a minute. And she lost a bunch of weight, but her meals were not what I would eat. Like, it's not a healthy meal. So, but yeah, so let's talk a little bit about OMAD, like one meal a day.
Mhm.
So I do that when I travel. I'm going to New York at the end of April to help plan my son's wedding. And so what I do when I go there, we always do a really, really excellent dinner. And so I often just eat one meal because then I pig out and I have like gourmet and, the appetizers and all that. And
Mhm.
I usually come back lighter, but I don't do that often because my goal right now with my body, remember, we're all unique, is to make more muscle. And so I need to hit my protein goal, and it's really hard to do that if I only eat 1 or 2 meals a day. Okay. So I always want to make sure that you guys are checking in with your own body, because the whole focus or the whole point of sharing this fasting is the health benefits of it. Okay. That is why I feel like it's super important. It's not about being on a starvation crash diet to lose body fat. It's really truly about changing your immune system and getting rid of unhealthy cells. Okay. So go ahead, Kelly.
Well, yeah, I actually love one meal a day, and that's actually my favorite way to intermittently fast. I back in 2016, I had bariatric surgery because prior to finding this way of life, I did some really detrimental things to my health. I did an HCG type of diet for many, many years, and it really just destroyed my metabolism. So in order to fix my metabolism, I ended up having a gastric sleeve procedure. And that was because I got to the point where I could not consume more than 400 calories a day without blowing up like a balloon. So the gastric bypass, well, the gastric sleeve, I should say, allowed me to fix my metabolism. So I have a much smaller capacity. Even now, this many years out, it's still hard for me to get in enough fluids, especially as was always my biggest thing. For the longest time, I was severely dehydrated. But even in terms of food, to get enough food in. So I was naturally intermittently fasting just because I couldn't fit anything in there. But that said, when you can only have one meal a day, you cannot restrict what you're taking in, but you have to make really smart food choices. And so I thought of it as feasting and fasting, right? So in that one meal, I would not gorge myself, but I would get in whatever I could, but I would try to make it the healthiest, best quality food that I could, so that I would get the most nutrition out of it, because I could only take in so little. But if you haven't had that type of surgery and you're having one meal a day, then you're actually just eating whatever you want. And the nice part is, because you've gone through that 20 to 24 hour time frame of fasting between your last meal, you've actually burned so many excess calories in breaking down those fat molecules, because fat is almost twice as nutritionally dense as a carbohydrate is.
For energy purposes.
Right, for energy purposes. So when you break down a fat molecule, you're getting so much energy released, and you're really having true fat loss, which is what you want. You're not breaking down lean muscle. You're actually preserving lean muscle. You're increasing your metabolism because of the HGH production. You turn into like this calorie burning powerhouse when you do that. So you can afford, actually, when you're doing one meal a day, or even like alternate day fasting or rolling 72s, to be able to kind of eat a bad diet when you do eat, Not that I recommend that, but you could get away with it because you're burning so many calories in excess that you're not going to completely derail yourself. But I don't recommend it because you're just not getting good nutrition that way. Did you have a question?
And well, yeah, I want to comment. So my favorite benefit of OMAD truly is the autophagy. Okay. Because when you go, 14, 16 plus hours without food. So imagine, a free radical is essentially a cell missing an electron. Okay.
Yeah.
And every hour, over 1 million cells in your body are renewing and dividing. And the difference between sickness and health is the quality of your cells, essentially, right? I'm totally simplifying this, but so what happens is autophagy is the recycling and renewing and healing, repairing those damaged cells. And so that's my favorite benefit when it comes to these extended fasts. So the longest I've done is recently is 23 hours, but that's the best thing in my opinion is the autophagy. Okay.
Yeah. Just to expand upon that for a second, Otto Warburg has known for, when did he practice? I don't know, 100 years ago, 200 years ago, whatever the heck it was, a really long time ago. He found that the whole root cause of cancer was the presence of sugar, the presence of an acidic environment, and the lack of oxygen. So whatever you can do to change that to the opposite, decrease your sugar intake, increase your oxygenation, and increase the pH level of your system, make it more basic than acidic, you're basically cutting out the ability for cancer cells to create. And then when you add in autophagy on top of that, you're really hyper clearing your system of any cancers, because if there are any, cells that are in there that for whatever reason didn't divide the right way, your body will clean those up preferentially first and get rid of them before they ever have a chance to become a problem.
Yeah.
And I love that part about the effects of fasting, and that for a long time, that was one of the biggest reasons that I did it. And then the other nice part of that is the appearance of youth that comes with it. Remember how I was telling you, I looked terrible. I was even trying to find some pictures. I was gonna bite the bullet and present one. I can't find one because during that time in my life, I was so ashamed of how I looked that I would see a camera and I would dive under something to get away from it. You can't, I don't know if there even is a picture of me, unless it was like a candid or something. Or if I found them, I might have burned them or something. I don't know. But yeah, I don't look my age. And I really do attribute that to fasting because it extends the telomere length, and it improves your DNA, it improves all of your cells. I mean, like I said, when I did that juice fast, and that was only, I think that was a 6-week fast, but it was 2 weeks into it, I had brand new baby skin. So, if that happened in 2 weeks, over the course of a decade of fasting on and off, obviously you're going to have good results. So
I like how you said on and off, because like everything, you want to keep your body guessing. So if you do the same health practice day in and day out, your body goes, oh, I know what she's going to do. And it doesn't work as effectively, right? It's just like, how if you're on, okay, so I'm just going to use this as an example, like a pain pill or something. So somebody takes a pain pill and that dose lasts for maybe, say, I don't know, a year. And then all of a sudden they need more to get the same effect, or more to get the same effect. That is what also happens to our insulin, right?
Yep.
So it's something called insulin resistance, whereas the little bit that used to process that donut, which you better not be eating anyway, just kidding. But that same amount doesn't work anymore. So you need more, and all that excess insulin gets stored around your waist as fat. That's why it seems like with everybody, with all of us, our waistline increases with age. And it just expands. And I always say that that's just essentially energy waiting to be burned. And one way to burn that is by using that energy for fuel, for energy when you're doing these fasting. And so Okay, what hacks do you have? I really don't want to talk about extended fasting. I really just want to talk about health hacks, about like how to get through for intermittent fasting or possibly OMAD. I will add one first, and that is electrolytes. So when I was health coaching, I would have my clients make a picture of an electrolyte. So you don't have to buy something that's expensive. And essentially it's 2 quarts of water and a 1/4 cup of fresh lemon juice, a teaspoon of a quality salt. Like I like Celtic sea salt, or I use the right salt. I actually make my own salt blends often. I have the gold salt. I have like a bunch of different quality salts. And then a teaspoon of potassium, which is no salt or new salt. There's different, but essentially if you turn it around, it's potassium chloride, and it's what like people who have high blood pressure, their doctors tell them to use for the salt flavor, which is essentially potassium. And then either 400 or 500 grams of magnesium, like you can take the capsules apart and put them in the pitcher, or you can do a tablespoon of, what is it, magnesium calm. And they have like store brands and they have regular brands, okay? But I'm going to warn you that calm gives some people like a blast off effect. I can't take it, okay? It has me running to the potty, but some people take it just fine. And so you'll have to test it on your own body. But that electrolyte blend is something that really helps because it keeps you balanced and hydrated properly. Because when you fast, you dump water out of your cells. And so you need to make sure that when you dump water, you also dump electrolytes, salt being the big one. And so you don't want to feel all like woozy and wonky. So it just helps you feel sharp. Okay, Kelly.
Yeah,
your
and people often don't realize how essential electrolytes are in their body. Not only do they help balance the fluid, because the electrolytes and the minerals in your body hold on to water, right? But they also help maintain your blood's proper pH level. And they're responsible for carrying electrical signals from your nerves to your muscles. So if you have electrolyte imbalances, you have a world of problems. I mean, from heart arrhythmias to muscle tetany, where your muscles just cramp and they kind of lock up. You can have nausea, dizziness, a racing heartbeat, low blood pressure, weakness, muscle cramps, confusion, damage to your heart, kidneys, nervous system, and so many more things. And one of the biggest side effects of having an electrolyte imbalance is a headache. When somebody's complaining to me, and I used to have a lot of headaches before I knew this, one of the biggest reasons that people complain of headaches is because they're dehydrated and their electrolytes are too low. So if you can replace those ahead of the time, you won't get keto flu, which is essentially a lack of fluids and electrolytes in your system. Because when Tracy said that you dump fluid when you're fasting, the reason is because the sugar molecule holds a lot of water inside your cell. And as you burn those glycogen molecules from your skeletal muscles and from your liver, you diurese. As you're releasing all those sugar molecules, you're releasing the water that goes along with that from in those cells. So you'll see you're running to the bathroom all day for like 2 or 3 days. And you're like, how could I possibly be? I'm not drinking that much. It's because you're getting rid of the sugar, and with the sugar goes the fluids and goes the electrolytes with them. So you have to replace them. So you can drink a couple of things that will replace those and make your fast easier. So first of all, you can drink any non-caloric beverage of your choice. So that includes water with salt, squeeze of lime, lemon. You can add a little apple cider vinegar to your water. You can drink carbonated or fizzy water, whatever you want to call it. Tea without sweeteners and without milk, herbal teas. Without caffeine is best, because caffeine actually in some people can cause such fast heartbeat that it's not worth it.
And it's dehydrating. Caffeine's
Yeah,
dehydrating.
and it also dehydrates you further. You can have, okay, so this is controversial. These two things are controversial. You can have tea or coffee with a little bit of heavy cream in it, like no more than like 2 tablespoons, because that little bit gives you the fat that you need to get through like the hunger pains and make it a little bit easier of a fast. But there's some controversy as to whether or not it's enough to really break your fast or not. Same thing with adding butter, like bulletproof coffee, adding butter to it.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So it's my understanding, because I read Jason Fung's book, Dr. Jason Fung, The Complete Guide to Fasting. And if it's under like 35, 40 calories, it will not break your fast. If it's over that, it will. So what I do is I add a teaspoon of MCT oil or butter into my coffee. And so it doesn't, you can do coconut oil. 1 teaspoon will not break your fast. It's under the calorie limit. And I whip it in the blender with a half a teaspoon of the golden milk powder and just a little bit of the drops, the monk fruit drops. And it whips up like a beautiful latte. It is so yummy. It's my favorite taste ever in the world. So try it. Okay.
Yeah, you can also add bone broth. Some people drink pickle juice. That wouldn't be my first choice. I would go for the bone broth. But I mean, hey, maybe if you're pregnant, I don't know. Although if recommend fasting. Here's a thing though. A lot of people want to drink coconut water for the electrolytes. Coconut water is not an approved fasting fluid because it's too high in carbohydrates. So just be careful with that one, because I know a lot of people have made that mistake and they couldn't figure out why they weren't like kind of getting into ketosis and why they weren't having the results. It was the coconut water. Coconut milk and MCT oil are okay, but coconut water is not approved. And here's the other controversial thing. I don't personally have a problem with adding things like stevia or monk fruit, those type of like artificial sweeteners to my drinks. But in some people who are really, really sensitive, those can cause an insulin spike. And oftentimes you don't necessarily notice it unless you have like one of those Dexcom machines, like a continuous blood glucose monitor, or some other kind of like, if you're testing religiously your blood sugar, you may not notice that. For me, if it does spike, it's so minimal, I've never had any problems from it. But the general accepted idea is to try to not use any artificial sweeteners if you can get through it that way. Excuse me.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that. Stevia and monk fruit aren't considered artificial sweeteners. Aspartame.
No, they're alternative. Yeah.
Those are, so the better word would be a low calorie or no calorie sweetener. But I'll tell you, I highly recommend everyone staying away from erythritol. That stuff gives me the worst stomach ache ever. And I don't know what's in it, but they seem to want to put it in everything. So I'm not a fan of that.
Well, see, I'm okay with erythritol too. So, you have to experiment sometimes, but the sugar alcohols like the erythritol, maltitol, xylitol, all of those, they can have a lot of gastric upset in your stomach. And some people like cannot tolerate them at all. And maybe you're one of those people. I don't like maltitol. It doesn't sit right with me. Xylitol is okay, but I don't keep it in the house because I have a pet and they can die from that if they ingest it. So I do have some erythritol and I use it in my like low carb baking and stuff like that, but I've gotten away from adding it to like any of my like drinks or foods, unless it's like a baking type of thing. I usually do really well with stevia or the monk fruit for myself. And allulose is another one that has recently come on the market, and that has prebiotic and probiotic components to it as well.
Yeah,
so,
I have. That's good.
Yeah, so I haven't had.
Donna's asking about ground green stevia. I haven't heard of that, but I'm assuming it's probably the stevia leaves that are dried and then ground. That would be fine.
Yeah, it's from I've had both white and green powder. So it's the Riboscia, whatever it's called, and one is treated with liquid, like aqueous liquor, like an alcohol solution, and one is not. And so there's some controversy. I think the one that's done with just the water can cause some like problems with I think it's like tumor growth in like rats, but like at an amazingly high rate. Like you'd have to feed it to like 20 elephants to get to that level. Whereas the one that's created with the sugar, with the alcohol, the aqueous alcohol, does not do that, and that's the white one. But yeah, if you were to take just the regular leaf, like there's people that grow the stevia and they take the leaf and they just ground that would be a green leaf. But I would do it myself. I wouldn't necessarily buy the green one, because I don't know, there's
I
a lot
gotta
of,
try that. You guys, we can always plant stevia and try it and dehydrate it. And okay, Trudy has a question for you, Kelly.
sure, go ahead.
It's not totally a question, but I did a fast a while ago because I had such bad sinus issues, and I had gone to acupuncture. I'd done all sorts of stuff. I did electrodermal screening and found out that I had candida, and I did Bach flowers and tinctures back then. And at that point I said, I'm going to clean my system out and start over. And I did what was called the master cleanse. I don't know if you've heard of it.
I've done it. Yeah, I've done it.
And I did it for 10 days, and I didn't eat anything for 10 days, just drank that and water and herbal tea. And I gotta tell you, I never in my life felt so clean. I felt like I was squeaky clean on the inside. But what was really interesting is even after 9 days of no food, I was still getting hard matter out. So that really told me a lot that, we hold so much in there that even 10 days of no food going in, just, liquid. And I did, it was lemon, cayenne pepper, and the darkest maple syrup that you could get, because it had all the minerals in it. And I felt amazing. I really did. But it, the first 3 days, of course, is the hardest of anything that you do, because, your body is like going through an adjustment. But I was not hungry. I walked every day. I drove an hour to work. So I gauged everything, and I had so much energy. It was through the roof. And but that's an extreme thing. You don't do that all the time, but even if you did that once a year, that is huge for your body.
And do it under doctor supervision. I'm really trying to help you guys and protect you. Just, please, like, this is for information purposes only.
You know what, Tracy? I'm so glad you said that.
I had a naturopath.
One of the most important things I want to get across is that if you are on any medications whatsoever, I don't care if it's for diabetes, your heart, whatever, especially if it's a heart medication for like blood pressure or a diabetic medication, you absolutely have to work with your doctor if you're going to try fasting. And I absolutely do not recommend longer than 16/8 if you are on a medication such as metformin, Ozempic, Januvia, any of those, because those are, well, metformin is a big one, anti-diabetic, and Ozempic and Januvia and all those are GL1P receptor agonists. And how those work is with the metformin, it actually prevents you from being able to, in your liver, convert fats to sugar. So if you're not eating, you're not getting any sugar because you can't make it on your own. So you absolutely cannot do longer than 16/8 if you're taking metformin or Januvia and those type of things.
Thank you.
And yeah, so and as you're kind of diuresing or getting rid of this excess fluid, and as you're liberating this excess fat, you're going to come down in weight and you're going to come down in fluid, and that's going to lower your blood pressure. And if you're not careful and you're not being monitored appropriately, you're going to get dizzy, you're going to get weak, you're going to get nauseous, you're going to pass out, you know, or your sugar is going to drop so low that it's dangerous. So you absolutely have to work with your doctor. This is not something, you know, that you should just be like experimenting with at a whim. So if you're on any kind of medications, have a conversation with your doctor. You're naturally going to have to come down on your anti-diabetic medications, whether it's insulin or whatever the case might be. It's going to naturally drop and you're going to need to be monitored. So please, I don't want to get any, you know, messages. Oh, I tried your fasting and I'm in the hospital. Please do not try this without speaking with your doctor and working with them. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
awesome.
I had supervision when I did mine.
Good.
So I was on medication. So it makes a big difference if you are on medication. Totally.
Yeah, I believe that. Gloria, do you have any questions for Kelly?
No, not at this point. I did earlier, but the only thing that I'm concerned about is that we need to make sure that we don't call stevia and monk fruit anything else other than it's a natural sweetener. I have grown stevia, and if you take the leaf and you put it between your fingers, it's so sweet you can't stand it. But it's very, very temperamental. I can't grow it here. If it freezes, I mean, even if you try it in the house, it doesn't grow. But it is not an artificial or any other name for it. It's nature's sugar. The leaf is sweet. And so that's important that people understand. And just on an end note here, I am type 2 diabetic. And until I did my intermittent fasting of 16 hours, because I'm up at 2 or 3 in the morning, I have a breakfast to break my fast. And our only other meal is around 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I never eat beyond that unless I happen to be going out for dinner for something, which is not very often. And it's 16 hours. And I break it with some heavy cream, my coconut creamer, and I don't even use stevia. I don't need it. And I have an electric frother, so it is a big latte when I drink it in the morning. I literally froth it, and it's delicious. So I do use heavy cream because heavy cream has no sugar, and it whips, so it makes the froth, and that satisfies that hunger, that hankering for the latte type drink. So thank you. I think one more
Jorgen.
question, I think.
Yeah, Jorgen has a question, then we'll talk about your recipe.
Oh, it's just a comment. It's a good name. Wow, it's getting better and better. Thank you, Kelly and Tracy, for being among such a beautiful soul, sharing the knowledge. That's a very big privilege. And I have never done it in your way. And I have always at least taken 5 or 7 days. And I learned it I live in Denmark. I was 5 weeks with Gabriel Cousins in Arizona, Tree of Life, a very skilled doctor who have done fasting for 30 years, and he used the cucumber and celery diluted with pure water, and he has a great success with diabetics, and I learned it there, and I can only always say you should be very careful, because I've always used the 2 weeks before I go on fasting to skip everything, so it's a vegan diet and a diet, and then it's very important to know how you break the fast, because as Tracy is so good, you every time tells we are all different and we need to listen to our body. And in this case, you really need to get among professional people, because nobody knows how they react. And Kelly, as you tell, with medicine, and truly the same experience I have. After 3 days, you get in a special state of mind, and you learn to feel what true hunger is. And I use it to reset my body and get rid of bad habits. That's very powerful for 7 days. But you really need to start your digesting system. It's a big problem for many people. Luckily, not for me. It's easy for me. I'm a fast oxidizer, blood type O. And so it's easy for me to start up my digesting system. But it's very powerful, 5 or 7 days in celery and cucumber juice. But the first 3 days can be very, very hard, because everything you have in the body physical or mental, will see the day of light. And therefore it's so important to be among professional people who can treat with supplements and support you psychologically. So thank you.
Thank you, Jorgen.
That's so
And
important.
what?
I'm just saying that's so important, those distinctions, you know?
Right.
And, you know, for people who are diabetic, you of all people really are the ones that need to incorporate intermittent fasting because of its effect on lowering inflammation and lowering your insulin response, you know, increasing your sensitivity to insulin and lowering the sugar in your body. You know, and that's why you are diabetic, because of the damage that's been caused to your system over years of being exposed to that inflammation. And so like Trudy and Jorgen were just saying, you know, those first 3 days are the hardest, and they're the hardest because you're converting from burning sugar to burning fat. That's why I always recommend doing it the other way and converting to burning fat first and then starting the intermittent fasting, because it makes that transition so much easier on your body, you know, and you're not working against yourself.
Steph, a question for you. You look great in yellow, Steph. You got to unmute.
Glad this topic came up for today because my brother had called me real too early this morning to tell me I'm an advocate for fasting. Um, that's another one of those topics that they forget is in the Bible. But anyway, um, he said he went to the VA yesterday, and the nurse pulled him to the side and told him, you know, Pets, it looks like you might need to look into a reset. You need some fasting.
Oh, wow.
And see, we have been doing things, and I've been telling him about fasting for so long that I think I tell him about everything that he, at that point, he's like, well, what else could there be, you know? But I had been fasting for years. I go to the butcher, get my grass-fed bone, and I make my bone broth. And I actually have been doing that with water for years. And it feels good at the same time. Everything does purge to get, like what he's saying, a complete reset. And and he told me he did it. He said so far he hasn't eaten, and he went a little further than that, but our diet doesn't consist of a lot of carbs anyway because we're on the farm. So and as far as proteins and stuff, so it makes it a little bit easier. But he said after that he hadn't had any pain anymore. See, he was going through this cycle of his body start having pain. I don't think my brother's, he's like 6'2", 6'3", and probably doesn't even weigh 170 pounds. But he was having pain, and we had been working with it long distance. So he says when he comes over here, he's fine. I fix it, but he's gonna learn how to do it on his own. So this is a great topic. It's more important than anybody can even realize because just what's in the food, and we, you know, there's a lot of toxins in everything we had when the last time I spent my vacation in the rehab. Soon as I came out of the rehab, I immediately started doing, like you're saying, I took it slow, 3-day fast for, 7-day, then come back and hit it with a 10-day. And
Okay, so
I did certain things.
let's just tell them that you don't
Yeah.
start off with a 3-day fast. Okay, that's
No,
why I
you
wanted
don't.
to stop it today
No.
at OMAD. You start with
Yeah,
intermittent fasting, extending your fasting
that's
window
correct.
little by little by little.
Yeah, you have to work your way up to it because if you don't, you're gonna cause yourself another problem. But
Yeah.
yeah, intermittent fasting is what I do now. Unfortunately, I still don't sleep well, but I wake up 3 o'clock every morning, and then I do my prayer, and then about 8 I start preparing breakfast for my sister, but breakfast. But I'm finished dinner by 5, 6 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't believe in the other part. So if she needs something in between, I'll give her something like a chia with fruit and vegetables, pudding, it's something like that. But usually everything's okay. And even if I put a salad to the side for her to eat, she never does. So it'll end up being lunch the next day. So it's just it's something that we need to do so that we can get the other stuff out of our system.
Yeah.
Thank you, Kelly.
And
Thank
with
you.
that
This is great.
said, with Trudy said that there was matter coming out after a long time. I want Dr. Gloria. She sat on she was like chairman of the International Colonic Society or something. I think that would be a really good
No, I
topic.
was president.
Yeah, those are
Yeah,
not my friends.
president of the International Colon Association, because I had leaky gut and I wrote a book about it. And so we carry up to the equivalent of 20 to 30 bowel movements in our large intestine. And so when Trudy says she was purging, it doesn't surprise me. I have people that I've sent to colon hydrotherapy with professionals, mind you, only. I'm not talking enemas. And they are 100 pounds and they're just flabbergasted. How can that be coming out of my body? I'm not bloated. I don't have a big stomach. What's going on? Well, it's all in your tissues. It's all in the fat cells. It's all purging from every part of your body. And so colon therapy saved my life. I mean, when I got the leaky gut, my liver shut down. And the only way that we could keep me from going into anaphylactic reaction was colon hydrotherapy. So, you know, I spent a fortune on that. And then eventually, when I started working with some of the doctors and they asked me to lecture, is when I finally got elected as president of the International Association for Colon Therapy. So over, I don't know, 14, 15 years I was president. I gave up my position about 3 years ago.
Can I have you come on and do that soon? Because since we're on this topic, next week is supposed to be biodiversity.
Whenever you want.
So we'll talk about that, but next week's supposed to be biodiversity. Your inner ecology needs it. So maybe think about if you want to do that next week, or if you want to talk about colonics next week or what. So,
well, we can, your biodiversity, your internal terrain, your internal garden has a lot to do with colon therapy. So we can just combine it.
Okay, perfect. That's awesome.
Has a lot to do with that.
And Steph has another question, and then we're going to have you introduce what you're cooking for tomorrow, and then we'll see.
Yeah, because I have to get going. I've got a patient in a few minutes.
Okay.
Oh, and if anybody wants to speak over for a couple minutes, in 3 or 4 minutes, I can explain structured water.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yes. Sure. Then go ahead.
Okay.
I have a structured water shower and everything. Go ahead.
Okay, so structured water actually has a different chemical formula than regular water. Regular water is H2O, so that's 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Hydrogen peroxide is H2O2, so you're adding 1 extra hydrogen and 1 extra oxygen. Structured water is actually H3O2. So when you break down structured water, and it breaks apart, you end up with a water molecule and a hydroxide molecule. Now, this is a little science, but it'll make sense in a second. So you're actually getting an extra molecule of water, and you're getting another oxygen and another hydrogen. When those break apart, the oxygen goes to work right away, and so it acts to clean up free radicals, all that kind of stuff, right? And oxygenating your system. The hydrogen atom increases your pH level, because when you're talking about pH, you're talking about the number of hydrogen atoms within your system. It's so weird because it's both neutral and negatively charged at the same time. So it's just a bizarre kind of like amalgamation. But structured water is thicker, it's more viscous, and it's got a hexagonal shape, meaning 6 sides, which looks very much like a beehive. And when you look at it under a microscope, you would picture like a snowflake that has like 6 sides to it. It's really beautiful. And it equates similarly to the frequency of 528 hertz, which is the same frequency that we associate with the heart chakra, which is interesting. Right. And this is another interesting fact, when bees are buzzing, that also resonates at 528 hertz. And so you can make structured water in a few different ways. You can make it by putting it in a vortex, which is the natural way, because as water, comes down from the mountaintops and goes along the riverbeds and streams all along, it's being aerated and turned naturally, and it's getting a natural vortex motion. Or you can put it into like a blender and spin it around. However, you can also, and I don't know if you can see it on here, I have taken my little Dremel, and on the side of my glass, I've put in words like health, love, joy, gratitude, and a little heart symbol. You can also put in like the actual numbers of the solfeggio frequency. All of that will structure the water, just like Tracy was doing earlier and with Dr. Masaru Emoto's idea of putting messages on the water bottle. You can actually just put it right on the bottle itself. You can take something like this, which I don't know if, okay, there. So it's just a clear quartz crystal, and I just wrapped some wire around it, and then you can put it into a glass of water, or you can just take a bunch of crystals and put it near your water, and it will also structure your water for you. You can put it in sunlight, that will structure it, or you can play music. So what a lot of people don't know is that the solfeggio tones, which range from 174 hertz up to 963 hertz, all coincide with the different chakras of the body. 963 being equivalent to our crown chakra, 528 being our heart chakra, and so on and so forth. Those also correspond to musical notes. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, which are G, G, A, B, C, D, E, F on the musical scale. So 963 hertz is equivalent to a B flat. 528 hertz is equivalent to a C note. And most music, well, a lot of music, there's different keys that things can be in, but C major is a very frequent range that music is played in. And so we're constantly being, given these different tones. The only problem is at some point they changed it from, 432 hertz to 440 hertz to make it less resonant with us and more dissonant. But there are programs that you can get. I have one on my computer, I forget what it's called, but it will actually play like regular music in specific frequency ranges. So you could set it to say 741 hertz if you wanted that specific tone, and it'll play like a Britney Spears song in the 741 hertz range. So the music sounds a little different, but it's the same song. And it's really interesting because I've found that when I listen to solfeggio tones, it really changes my perceptions, the feelings in my body. I feel more open, I feel more zen, I feel more comfortable. And it's all, you can do that right with your water. And like I said, structured water is actually more hydrating for your body. And it helps to, helps with the whole grounding process and the exchange of electrons and oxygenation of your body. It's just a wonder thing. And you can do that in so many easy, simple ways, without going crazy. Copper drinking cups, that's another way too.
Can I ask you, I thought we've talked about this before, that if you had like a lid on your water and shook it, that would help, or taking like a frother, like a mixing frother and froth it.
Yeah.
Do those make structured water as well, or no?
I don't know about the shaking. It probably would, especially if it was inside like a copper tumbler of some sort, or if there were, stones inside your thing. Definitely perturbation of the water would definitely do that. And I think it's more the vortex.
Okay.
It is. Yeah, it's
But
a
the
movement.
frother would
It's a
definitely
movement.
work. The frother would definitely put it in a vortex for sure.
Okay, cool. I have a frother.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kelly. You are awesome. I can't wait for you to come back.
Thank
And
you.
Prudy's showing us, I think she has
Thank
crystal
you.
water. Does the QTWave? Yes, I have heard that, Sally, that you can, so I don't know how to test it, but I've heard that if you put your device on top of like, say your water like this, that it could structure it. I don't know how to test that. But I have heard that. And okay, so we're going to close up here with Dr. Gloria telling us what is on the menu for tomorrow.
Well, and I just had some of my patients make it and they're raving about it, so I hope you will. It's breakfast tacos. And Tracy was so funny when we made it in the show. She was like, okay, this sounds good, but you know, she wasn't too excited, to be honest. Were you? And then she takes a bite of the tacos and it's like the whole world changed. So remember that again, a recipe is a guide. It's not set in stone. I use the cauliflower taco shells from Trader Joe's, which is not called taco shells. They call them cauliflower slims, or the pizza crust that they have out of cauliflower because it's like a big burrito, you know, rather than a flour tortilla, and put whatever you have in your refrigerator in it. But make my recipe the way it's written the first time. And what ends up happening is you find all kinds of other ways to use it. I have patients that have put it on top of the pizza and then put their cheese and they put their cilantro and their goodies, pineapple and whatever. I mean, they mix it with the taco meat. So the taco, the breakfast taco meat, what you're putting inside can be anything. It can be shredded chicken from a rotisserie chicken, which I've done. It can be the ground bison, which I prefer, and so does Tracy. Ground beef, whatever. A ground pork if it's a healthy pork that you know where it comes from and how it's been raised and fed. So don't get stuck on it has to be a certain type of meat. Whatever agrees with you, whatever you have handy that's the healthiest that you can buy. But try the tacos the way they are because we make a lot of breakfast tacos. It's quick. And I'll make a mix of something. For 2 days we can have them for breakfast and you just warm up the cauliflower slim and a little bit of coconut oil on the stove or a little butter. Just warm it up just to get it warm, like you just made a fresh tortilla. It's already cooked. And so don't get stuck on what to put in it, but try the recipe the way it is the first time. That'll be coming out tomorrow, right?
And don't use meat. Okay. The first time you try it, when she says try it the way, the regular recipe doesn't call for meat, but she has it as one of those notes or the add-ons. But the way she teaches how to make your eggs, I've never done it before, but the best eggs I've ever had. And I eat eggs every day. So I'm not going to give you the secret because you're going to have to watch the video or read the recipe, but her egg way is just like, woo, so good. So
yeah, it's the best eggs I've ever made. And we took a lot of time and a lot of flops until we got it right. But if you can eat eggs, you'll love the recipe. So please make it that way the first time. Thank you. And thank you, Kelly.
So good. Awesome. Okay. Well, we want to give Kelly a big thank you so much for honoring us. You got to come back someday. And we're going to close.
Kelly. Thank you.
Let's close in our normal way. Okay. Bringing your hands together. Anjaneyasana, and bring it up to your forehead. May you think only joyful thoughts to your lips. May you speak only kind words, and to your heart. May you show love to yourself and to all those around you. Peace, peace, peace. Namaste.
Namaste.
Thank
and if
you.
anyone would
Namaste.
like
Thank you.
the PowerPoint that I made to go along with this, let me know. I can send it to you.
Okay, here's what I'm going to tell y'all. What I'm going to do is, and so all of the WOW replays are in a list. When you watch one, then all the assets, like any recipes or any flyers or anything is going to be in a link in the description of the video on YouTube. Okay, so it's easy to find. All the videos are unlisted, but you can get the replays on the newsletter as well as the website. We now have a WOW page that links to the playlist, which will give you all the videos. Okay.
Perfect.
So you'll be able to find that. And then I'll upload 2 documents, her PowerPoint as well as her structured water sheet. Okay. Great.
Thank you.
Perfect.
Have a
Thank you,
beautiful
Kelly.
day, guys.
Thank you.
Love to you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.